National youth orchestras are a phenomenon of exceptionally fine, high-quality youth orchestras that represent countries around the world, and they contain the best young musicians of that country with the best instruments, the best facility for instrumental teaching, and international conductors and soloists. I was sitting at a table in a bar having fish and chips in 2008 in Edinburgh in Scotland, and I was flicking through a newspaper on the table, and there was a headline that said, "Iraqi teen seeks maestro for youth orchestra." It was from a 17-year-old musician called Zuhal Sultan, and she was living in Baghdad. In 2008, coming out of the Iraq war, she wanted to create, as her contribution to rebuilding the country, a national youth orchestra of Iraq. I didn't know anything about these young people, other than that they were in a desperate state of needing better instruments, better teaching, and the chance to play music together. But we couldn't compete with the other national youth orchestras. That was a ridiculous notion, because they were learning classical music by themselves through a Middle Eastern war. So these were extraordinary young people, and I knew that we needed an extraordinary solution. That's where Blue Ocean Strategy came in. I couldn't go to Iraq. Nobody had the money for that, never mind the security costs of jumping from town to town doing live auditions like any other national youth orchestra. So I auditioned by YouTube. So it was about taking very simple, free social media tools to discover who was out there in Iraq and who I could pull together to create a national youth orchestra. We did not have the capacity to compete on the level of perfectionism and excellence and sophistication of many European national youth orchestras. So one of the things that I decided we must do is represent Iraq musically, Sunnis, Shiites, Kurds, Arabs, all the diversity of Iraq together into one powerful musical organism. We asked Kurdish and Arab Iraqi composers living in Iraq to write orchestral music for us, which we then premiered alongside Mozart and Haydn and Beethoven. And that was key to our differentiation. That was key to creating the shift that set us well apart, along with the peacemaking and reconciliation from the other youth orchestras. Really, the key to motivating the orchestra to take on board this new model of a youth orchestra was to present them as their country's authentic diplomats. Their diversity, their passion for music making, and their musical heritage was all packed into their concerts and their communication across cultures. So for me, it was about giving them the opportunity to step on a plane and fly to Bonn in Germany, or Aix-en-Provence in France, or Edinburgh in Britain, and become the new face of Iraq after the war. Not terrorism, not war, not corruption, but young, highly talented young people with a tremendous diversity of culture. That's why they were very much owners of the strategy. We were called the bravest orchestra in the world by Sky TV, and we did actually live up to that. Myself and my tutor team who flew into Iraq would be there for a couple of weeks, but the real courage was actually the young Iraqis who came together from different towns and then went back home to the daily terrorism, to the increasing religious oppression. So they were facing daily challenges, and that in itself was an act of huge courage. But then to leave Iraq and become internationally spotlit as, international Iraqi diplomats, that was really putting their necks on the line. We were able to create a national youth orchestra that for Iraqis, never mind anybody outside Iraq, symbolized unity and possibility. The wisdom of the project was that we refused to compete in the red ocean of other national youth orchestras. It would have been a waste of time and energy. What we did instead, and this was really owned by the young people in the orchestra, is we created a blue ocean to do with reconciliation and peace building and communication in a country that had none of these things. We may not have been able to compete against other national youth orchestras, but it was never our intention to. What we did was build a reputation as the bravest orchestra in the world. And together, the collective force of all these young souls who'd been through a war and who were using music to save themselves, created an orchestra that may not have been the perfect, glossy product of Europe and America, but was the most intensely exciting and energetic and powerful musical experience that I think I've come across.